Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 175, featuring the top 5 episodes you want to watch again for the first time. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we have another fun episode of TrekRanks for you. Tonight we're doing the top 5 episodes you want to watch again for the first time. That is definitely our longest episode title, and I love this idea for a topic. So for whatever reason, it's just those episodes you wish you could kind of bathe yourself in some tachyons and go back in time and watch again for the first time. And curiously, this is also the first time we've ever done a Flash Ranks version of Trek Ranks, where I basically put a call out just 24 hours ago for guests willing to come on the show and do some last-second homework. And we ended up with an amazing cadre of panelists. We have 3 of them tonight. First up, returning for her 8th overall appearance and coming to us live from the Florida Relay Station, it's Debbie Moltisanti. Debbie, welcome back.
Hey, Jim. Hey, everybody. Great to be here. And I actually think this is a really fun topic.
So fun. All right. And second, he was with us recently on episode 167 in our top 5 weather-related incidents, returning for his 8th overall Trek Ranks appearance as well. Our favorite Trek wordsmith, hailing us from the Eastbourne, England expanse, the boss of the Wordster, Mr. Ross Webster. Ross.
Hello, hello. How are you?
We are very good. And finally, our third guest is back for his second Trek Ranks appearance. I cannot believe it has been more than 2 years since he was here last. Episode 109 in our TOS Guilty Pleasure episodes. He's contacting us from the East Coast corridor. It's Caleb Dorsch. Caleb.
Hey, happy to be here.
Oh, man, I'm excited to have you on again. I cannot believe it's been 2 years, man.
2 years. I've seen you more often since then.
That's insane. It's actually true. That's insane. All right, going to be a great show. Let's get into our quick Trek Ranks recalibration.
You can recalibrate the regulators now.
Will do.
Okay, the Trek Ranks Charter has 2 clauses. 1, we rank Trek so we can have a fun conversation about Star Trek. And 2, the ranks don't matter. We just use them as the framework to have a deep dive conversation about all the things we love about Trek.
Infinite diversity in infinite combination. Words that are a mere shadow of its true meaning.
And their true meaning on Trek Ranks is no wrong answers. This show is about sharing the things we love about Star Trek. And we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, now Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Short Treks, Lower Decks, and Prodigy as well. It's all fair game here on the Trek Ranks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of Trek Ranks is current through the 4th season of Star Trek Lower Decks and 903 overall episodes of Star Trek across the past 57 years. And one final note that we use episodes as a shorthand term, but the 13 films are always in play as well.
Hailing frequencies open.
Thank you, Mr. Worf. You can hail me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise NXtra, and on Blue Sky at TrekRanks. And you can see our extensive rankings of all the treks at TrekRanks.com. And don't forget to call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. All right, Debbie, Ross, and Caleb, let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace. Debbie.
I am pretty much on all those little socials at SilverDoe25.
Fantastic. Ross, how about you?
You can find me mostly on Blue Sky, Taborg at Blue Sky Social.
Love it. And Caleb?
I'm pretty much everywhere at Rogue Mogue, ROGUEMOGH. That's Blue Sky, Mastodon on 10 Forward, I think, and then X/Twitter, which it's always Twitter. Let's be
Twitter. It's Twitter. The legendary Rogue Mogue. Love that handle. All right, we are ready to run a diagnostic cycle to get into this show.
Computer, run a level 2 diagnostic.
All right, so just a quick breakdown here on our diagnostic cycle. I want to be clear that this topic, again, is the top 5 episodes you want to watch again for the first time, which is not the same as top 5 episodes that always feel like you're watching it for the first time, because we're definitely going to do that topic later. So I just want to be clear on that. This is those ones you want to just watch again for the first time. And, you know, that it's like wanting maybe to recapture an experience an episode again for whatever reason. Maybe it was just that special, or maybe you watched it too many times now. I have that problem. Or maybe it's one of those episodes where everything was different once you kind of knew the twist. I don't know. It could be a million reasons. So I just wanted to stress that quickly before we get into our prime directives.
Do they know about Prime Directive? They know everything I know, sir.
And you're about to know everything we know about our prime directive. So Debbie, we're starting with you. How did you break this down and finalize your picks? I'm guessing you had a bunch to start with.
I had tons. I mean, honestly, this was just a straight brainstorm.
Yep.
And I really like about this topic. I'm currently, I have been listening to the Delta Flyers podcast, and they've finished Voyager, and now they are doing a rewatch of Deep Space Nine. But consequently, Robert Duncan McNeil has never seen DS9, and I am having so much fun with him,
right?
Like, because he's never seen it. So he's asking about things like, did Dax and Julian get together? And this past episode, it was something about, they made a comment about something where something happened and Quark was protecting his ears. And he's like, why is he protecting his ears? And Armin Sherman's like, you'll find out later. And he's like, oh, I want to know. And it's just like that joy of seeing something for the first time. So that's kind of what I did for my list.
Okay, I love that. Pretty sure Robbie Duncan McNeil has never seen Voyager either, based on that show until the podcast. Okay, Ross, how about you? How did you break it down?
It was very hard for me not to just pick episodes that I just really love and that I would love to watch again and just be amazed by for the first time. But spoiler alert, I did do that a bit. But I actually did come up with several reasons why it would be good to watch a particular episode for the first time. And that'll come across, I think, when you hear some of my picks. Like, some of them are very specific, like I'd like to watch this one again, specifically. So I was quite pleased. It actually flowed quite nicely.
I love that. So you have some real specific reasons based on the episodes. I love it.
Yes.
Okay, Caleb, how about you, man?
So I started, much like Deb, with a long list of a brainstorm, and then I kind of went by series when I grouped them together. And then I realized, the things that were really shining about a lot of my top picks were things that if I went, oh my God, they really went there with this particular story.
Yeah.
And so when I narrowed it down, it just conveniently happened that they all ended up being Kurtzman era episodes.
Oh, awesome.
So that's kind of my prime directive is kind of rooted in canon, things that I wasn't expecting them to do that they did. And once you know that, it kind of changes the entire flavor of the season or the series you're watching, right? So that was kind of at the root of my picks. And then I still made a secondary systems list that's all like Berman era episodes and stuff.
Wow.
That's fantastic. So that's a very different way to look at it. So, all right, I had 3 things of note in my prime directive. So you've heard me say many times on the podcast that it's always important to kind of sometimes view episodes in the context of the first time you viewed them, or to remember them in the first context you viewed them, and not let time distort those views in negative ways. For me, maybe if the story was super original at the time, but maybe now it's more run of the mill because you've seen it 100 times elsewhere and you've seen the episode 100 times. So that was like really at the core of my prime directive, is highlighting those episodes that I just think that set the groundwork for big Star Trek storytelling ideas. And maybe over time has been lost because I've watched them too many times, or because maybe that particular plot device has been used so much since then, whether in Star Trek or other series. So that was the main driver. So basically what I'm saying is I'm taking the meme of something that's from Wired that's become tired, and I'm taking it back to Wired because that's for me is the appropriate context when in some of these episodes. So second, there's no TOS on my list because it's really weird. When I was thinking about TOS, I think because I saw them as a kid, I just view them in a different way. So there's never an episode where I'm watching it and have seen it so many times that I'm not enjoying it in the same way. So that's kind of a weird outlier. So I think watching TNG as a young adult and the rest of Trek as young adult kind of changed that. And then third, all 5 of my picks man, they're all heavy hitters. They're all top tier Star Trek for me. There's one, all of them are top 10, or even actually, I think 4 out of the 5 picks are top 5, and one's like top 50, but they're all big, huge episodes of Star Trek through the years. All right, so that's how I broke it down. All right, let's do it. Third Automaticon, introduce us to the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, Third Automaticon. As always, we're going to start with our 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease our picks, and then we'll each reveal our episode you want to watch again for the first time and the reasons we're highlighting it. And after getting through 5 rounds of picks, we'll get a few secondary system selections from everyone. And remember, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Debbie, we're starting with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 episodes you want to watch again for the first time?
My 5 words are best/worst follow-up to TMP, hashtag wait, Spock dies, and it's Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
I would just love to be like savoring this movie with all its surprises all over again. You talked about TOS, like as a kid, which is when I definitely saw TOS tons and tons of times. Like I wasn't a big Space Seed person. So like I was like, Khan, I knew who he was. I just loved how he came back. I loved all of the cat and mouse things with the fights in the nebula and all the Genesis stuff and just everything about it. And then just remembering that end scene, I was like, I loved the movie so much. And then my favorite character died. Like what? Right. Wait a minute, what?
That hits differently when you live through it like we did, Deb, right? Where you see it in the theater and Spock is dead and you walk out of the theater and
you're like,
don't know if there's going to be any more Star Trek ever.
Correct. And you don't know that there's Search for Spock or anything.
Yeah.
I remember at the time there was something somewhere, because it was definitely pre-internet, an article that somebody was so angry about it that they would go to see the film, and every time they would get up and leave before he died, like because they couldn't watch it again. Like that was okay, but I would love to experience that again for the first time.
Just to clarify, it was definitely pre-internet back in the days when we were watching those movies. This was definitely on my short list. It's on my secondary systems just because of that Spock moment, right? Just to relive that. Ross, what's your take?
So yeah, this film came out in 1982, so I'd have been 1 year old.
Yep.
So for me, I always knew, it's like Star Wars. I always knew Darth Vader was Luke's dad. Before I'd seen the films, I knew that. That was already part of pop culture. I already knew that Spock dies and comes back later on. I already knew that. It was already a complete, before I even started watching Star Trek films, I knew that was a thing because it was already a thing everybody already knew. And so I never got to enjoy it properly. I never did that because I already knew. I enjoyed it. It's still a great film. But I didn't enjoy it the way that somebody would walk into a cinema and sit down and have no idea what was happening and just experience it. I never got that. And it's always something I've wanted to go back and do. And I've seen the film at the cinema and I've watched it 100 times. But I always regretted not being able to go in with no knowledge. Because you can't. You already know. You know I knew there was a search for Spock before I'd seen the film, so I already knew this was happening.
And Spock would say, having a thing is not always the same as wanting a thing, because you don't think you want that, man. That was brutal.
It was totally brutal.
But you know, to have that emotion, to like feel the impact of it, because for me, it's always been lessened by the fact, well, I know he comes back. And maybe this is how people will feel about Data in, X number of years. For us, he was dead for years. Yep. For a decade, he was dead.
Good point.
And we just have to live with that. Now he's back. And there's no point now where anyone gets into Star Trek now that they might not, they might know that. They might not know as much because Spock is obviously iconic and legendary. Data is as well. But it hasn't maybe seeped into the public consciousness as much as Spock's death because it was just huge.
Yeah. Now he's back twice. Yeah. Caleb.
So I completely agree with Ross on this. This wasn't even on my radar. I don't know how I didn't think of this. It's amazing. I mean, if you were a new Star Trek fan, now growing up on, Picard and Lower Decks and Prodigy and things like that, Lower Decks straight up says, those bridge people always be coming back from the dead, like they always die and they always come back. And now like you got Data, you got Spock, like it just happens, and that is something that is definitely taken for granted because it's just part of the canon of Star Trek now, that's just kind of a trope that tends to happen. So yeah, like that would be a great one to go back and watch fresh without any foreknowledge. I think one of my first earliest Star Trek movies was probably Search for Spock. So I was, watching him grow up and I was like, why is Spock growing up really fast? Like completely out of the loop, so definitely.
Okay. Ross, what's your pick?
Okay. Space Seed sequel slays Spock. Hashtag, it was a hell of a thing when Spock died. The same pick, Wrath of Khan.
Well, we just anything to add on that one?
The hashtag is a line from Seinfeld. That's where George Costanza, there's just like a moment where they're talking about Star Trek 2, and he just sort of stops for a minute and just goes, it was a hell of a thing when Spock died. And that's it, because everybody knows about it.
Oh, God. So good.
He knows, I know, we all know. And you can't ever unknow it once you know it.
Oh, my God.
But I absolutely, as I said before, I'd go back in time to watch this film for the first time.
Oh, my God. That's so good. I love that George line. I didn't pick up on that when you said it, but...
and it's so perfect. He really is downcast as well. Like, God, hell of a thing when he died.
Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan. Hey, Kramer, I saw it last night. Spock dies, they wrap him up in a towel, and they shoot him out the bowels of the ship in that big sunglasses case.
It's a hell of a thing when Spock died.
Yeah.
All right, Caleb, let's go to you. Round 5. What's your first pick?
All right. So my 5 words in a hashtag. You're going to think it's one episode when you hear it, but it's really another episode. So here we go.
Okay.
Whatever your path may be, you can handle it. My episode I'm picking is A Quality of Mercy from Strange New Worlds. For me, seeing just the beginning where he's on the station and he sees the kid and realizes, oh, this is one of the cadets that I saved, calling back all the way to what they did tremendously in Discovery, right? And then to see the Monster Maroon version of himself pop up and just immediately know, like if you have that prior knowledge of watching the original series films, you see that uniform and you're like, wait a second, that's way after he would have gone to Talos 4. So what is happening here? Are we about to get some sort of It's a Wonderful Life Christmas Carol type spin on Star Trek? What is going on here, right? And just having that shock and knowing that just in that first, 10 minutes of that episode, and then still having so much to unpack after that, when you realize it's really a rehash of Balance of Terror, just incredible feeling the first time through. And it's still great every time you watch it afterwards, but just the kind of awe and wonder of watching that unfold in real time and being like, where are they really going with this? And then going with also, in this alternate timeline, hey, Spock is so severely injured at this point, he's basically out of the picture, completely changing all of history. Like, that's a huge thing, Yeah. So for me, it was A Quality of Mercy was my number 5 pick.
Oh my God, that is so fresh and new. I wouldn't even have thought. I mean, I was really focused on old episodes to kind of go back and relive them after living with them for 20, 30 plus years. This one we've only had for a couple of years. And that moment with Spock at the end, absolutely just gutted watching that and seeing Spock and then knowing, okay, I can't change anything I'm doing here. I got to just live my fate. And then we haven't even talked about it, just the audacity to retell Balance of Terror and just hit a home run the way they did here. Incredible. I would love to watch this episode for the first time, every time. Classic. Deb, what's your take?
I would love to be watching that and Balance of Terror like on 2 screens at the same time and somehow hear it all coming in. Like, that's what I would love to do. But I love how we all have Spock dying in our 5th choice here.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Ross?
I think this is a fantastic pick, and I didn't think of it, But it speaks to me about how when you watch one of these new episodes of Star Trek, and some of them are just blindingly good, but they also pull you back into episodes you've seen 100 times and make you look another way. Yeah. And in my secondary systems, I had Lethe, which I always think does the same thing for me. It takes that Spock-Sarek relationship and then it retwists it, and it makes you think, oh my God, I didn't know this. Yeah. And now I know it. Everything's different about how I watch those other episodes. And I do think this is such a corking episode, and it was so good. Yeah, and it's hard not to pick episodes that are just this good every time, because you just want to go back and have that amazed experience every single time.
And like you said, Jim, with my kind of through line and my picks, it's like they really went there, you know, like you said, they had the audacity to even do it. Like, that's just it. You watch this episode, you immediately in the first 10 minutes, you know, it's going to be a good episode.
Because they're not just grabbing this episode, they're grabbing other episodes with it, and they're pulling it all together. They're making it much bigger than just an hour long. It's now stretching back in time to hours of TV you've already watched and recalibrating them and making you have to look at it a bit differently again. It's good stuff.
Yep, incredible. Okay, I am going to break the streak here. Spock does not die in my pick. Round 5. I guess technically he didn't actually die in Quality of Mercy, but okay. 5 words and a hashtag. Surgically altered Cardassian spies everywhere. Hashtag clearance verification 9218 black. And this is Deep Space Nine season 3 episode 5 Second Skin. And I previously picked this on our top Cardassian episodes. I love this episode. This one just kind of stuck on my list. I couldn't get it off because the thought of reliving this episode in the moment where I remember the first time I was watching this, I was convinced. Okay, so Kira is a Cardassian. Are you kidding me? How crazy is this storyline that they're going to make Kira Cardassian? I was convinced this is where they were going with the story. Love this episode. Love that twist. They've done this. They'd referenced surgically altered Cardassians before in Tribunal. They've done it since with Seska. I just love this story thread. I love that there's this major Cardassian episode. Gul Dukat's not in it. It's a different type of Cardassian episode, and there's so much going on. And it has one of the all-time great lines when Sisko says to Garak, I believe that's the first completely honest thing you've ever said to me. And Garak's like, yeah, you're pretty sharp. Anyway, I love this episode, Second Skin, one of my favorites, and to see it again and be tricked again would be a joy. Ross, what's your take?
This, I did actually briefly think about this episode because it is one of those ones that keeps you on the hook until you know the outcome. Yeah. And I think I've read before that there was talk about actually making her a Cardassian and actually that being the through line going forward. And it's just odd to think that maybe things could have been so different, and if you watched it again for the first time, you really wouldn't know because, oh my God, they could have gone down that road just as easily. It could have been there. It's
so tricky, Deb.
And also, I think it's one of those they fooled you episodes because, like, you forget that it was actually the Legate that they were after and not her. Like, it makes you think that, you know, they're trying to convince her because they want something out of her and she knows something right. And then all of a sudden it turns around and who they're really after is the old man. Love it. Love it.
So tricky. Caleb.
Yeah, no, this is a great one. I agree with Russ. It definitely plays different once you know the outcome. I'm trying to remember if they ever revisited this concept later on in the series or if I was just bringing something in from memory from
No, they did with Seska.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, they did with Seska in Voyager. I feel like they also briefly did it in one of the more recent Trek books. It might have been Una McCormick's Second Self, interestingly similar titles. There might be a connection there too in that book too, which is really awesome. The surgically altered Cardassian twist. So great pick.
It's pretty good stuff. Okay, round 4. Debbie, what do you got?
5 words and a hashtag. Rom steals all the scenes. Hashtag he's a comic genius. And I'm doing a DS9. Season 5, episode 25, A Call to Arms.
Oh, yes.
This one I just want to see again because Max Grodenchik is just he's phenomenal. Like you can't even. First, they do the little beginning play with the
wedding dress.
They're trying to figure out what the wedding dress thing is, and he's just like I'm not going to be naked in my wedding. You would still have the loincloth, and then they go on to that they're both on some other one, but then the whole scene where he is coming up with the self-replicating minds, but at the same time he's panicking over his quarters and the wedding, and I don't have enough closet space. And then they're like, Rom, are you paying attention? Like he's got it all. I just love watching him, and I just would like to just see that all again for the first time.
Call to Arms definitely on my secondary system, as is pretty much the entire Dominion takeover arc at the end of season 5, beginning of season 6 of Deep Space Nine. This is brilliant. I was definitely considered picking this, but I love your reasoning with Rom. So good. The core of that episode. Ross.
I think you said, Jim, it's this episode's like the gateway, isn't it, to the whole series changing and shifting to something so huge, and to watch that again. I mean, it was massive. Deep Space Nine for me. But at that time, I was so in Star Trek. I was absolutely eating up every episode. Yeah. It was a very strange time for me to be a Star Trek fan because I was totally living it, and I was there for every episode. I absolutely loved it. And to watch Deep Space Nine again for the first time would just be the pièce de résistance.
I think that's anybody watching Deep Space Nine week to week at that point in time was all in at that point. You were just the storytelling was just
because it was building. Beyond. It just built and built.
Incredible.
This makes me want to change all the rest of my picks to just the entirety of Deep Space Nine from when it first aired, because I didn't get that experience.
Right.
I did it with the binge. So I did actually think about also Call to Arms through Sacrifice of Angels and just picking all 6 episodes there, But this is a great pick. It's a heck of a way to start off this epic arc that honestly is probably one of the more higher regarded arcs in Deep Space Nine.
So it's for sure in all of Star Trek, and has my favorite line from Cisco that you hear at the end of every episode of TrekRanks. Okay, let's go to Ross. What's your number 4 pick?
Okay, so I've gone from a big one, I'm going to a small one. Multiple muds manipulate moneyed mercenaries. Hashtag sipping jippers on a beach somewhere. I picked this. Great. It's a good episode. So this is Short Trek's The Escape Artist.
It's so good.
It's so good. There's no two ways about it. It's fantastic. And the twist at the end, I was genuinely made up that they got this fantastic twist that I hadn't caught on, that again links back to Harry Mudd and his previous, the stuff we know about him. He has access to androids. That's something we know about him.
Yep.
He can do that. But I didn't catch on with that. I didn't twig onto that. And then when that was the reveal at the end, I was like, he pulled the wool over my eyes. I've been had.
Mike McMahon. How does he do that?
It's so funny. It's so perfectly framed. And we got a couple of short treks really hit the sort of the self-contained, stylish story. And this is perfect for me. And I think this was the last time we saw Harry Mudd as well.
It is.
That's such a shame. Mm-hmm. But if I could watch this again, I remember just being bowled over by how I'd been done. I've been completely had. And I did not see the clever twist coming, even though Star Trek, could have told you it.
It's a goddamn masterpiece. Oh my God, it's so good.
If I had any money, I'd be sipping jippers on a beach somewhere.
Mike McMahon wrote this one. Rainn Wilson directed it. I love it. This is such a smart pick. I did not consider that any of our picks would go in this type of territory, but man, I would love to rewatch this episode for the first time, because it's one of those, again, where afterwards you're like, how did I not see that coming?
This is a great episode to give to someone that's like to watch with somebody else watching for the first time. Yes. You get that vicariously, like, oh, look, it's 10 minutes. Watch this. You'll think it's hilarious.
So
and then you watch them, like, what's their reaction going to be? Like, watch them watch it. Watch them watch it.
I couldn't agree more. I loved Rainn Wilson as Harry Mudd, and I've actually got a mud episode on my secondary systems. And you're right, Ross, it's not so much, it's the fact that they called all the way back to the Android stuff. Like that just was like the chef's kiss at the end of that episode.
I need someone to sample Sippin' Jippers on a Beach somewhere and turn it into an awesome song, because no, I love this pick. I mean, and never say never, Ross. All right, we've got Strange New World season 3 coming up. I'm
actually very excited. I really would like to see them again. I would like to see them again.
It's always possible. Yeah. No, this is a great pick. And the replicants thing, or the Android access. I mean, even Corby has that too, right? There's a bunch of people in the original series that seem to have access to it, and we've kind of got a lot of that Android related stuff recently, and even the modern era of Trek. So it's really cool to see them kind of bring those flavors back. It's good.
Okay, Caleb, what is your number 4 pick of an episode you want to watch again for the first time?
It's one I've watched many times, but there's nothing like watching it for the first time. 5 words: locutus impact from Wolf 359 indoors. # who needs a 14th movie? It's no win scenario.
Oh my God.
I love this. I love this episode. I know you do too. There's so much you can say about it. For me, it especially is something I would like to go back and experience again, because most of Picard season 3 was airing in February and March of 2023. My twins were born at the end of March. So getting this whole arc about Picard kind of learning how to be a dad, right before my kids were born, just completely a unique experience. I don't think I'll ever get on the other side of the coin ever again, right? Because now the kids are here and I'm fully in it. So it's like I can rewatch the episode and really appreciate the episode. It's a really dang good episode, but not being able to have the same experience because of what happened in my personal life is really, really cool. Especially at the end when you get that, all those 5-year ago flashbacks with Picard talking to the cadets and telling his stories. And then you realize at the end that Jack did try to reach out to him and he was there the whole time, in Picard's, short-sightedness or callousness or, whatever you want to call it. He didn't realize the impact that his words at that time had on him. And then the realization that, you were there and I recognized that is just super powerful. But it makes me think, even as a dad, what are the things that I might say and not realize what their impacts are, on my kids. So it really encourages a lot of mindfulness just from that scene alone. And then, of course, Stashwick just absolutely killing it in the barroom scene. People can talk that one to death. That's just incredible stuff from everyone all across the board. And I listened to the commentary today while rewatching it, and just even hearing them reflect on it and what they were able to do. It's just, you can tell that they're just really proud of that piece of work.
This is an all-time great episode of Star Trek. It's just that good. And you said the best thing. Who needs a 14th movie? This is your 14th movie, people. This is as good as any Star Trek movie. I said it. I stand by it. It's epic. Ross.
This is like one of the outstanding episodes of recent Star Trek. And what's nice is this is like part of the ascendancy of Picard as that series just ramped up and up and up. Those first 4 or 5 episodes are just everyone is better than the one before. And they are this episode particularly, that Todd Stashwick scene, it's unforgettable. It's so good.
Do you know where your old man was on that day? He was on that Borg cube, setting the world on fire! Forget about all that weird shit of the Stargazer. The real Borg are still out there, and they have a name for you. Locutus of Borg. The only Borg so deadly, they gave him a goddamn name.
All right, that's enough.
For me, this was, of course, the turn the corner on Shaw. I was in the camp of, what's the matter with this guy for the beginning of the season? And then this just, this is the place where you completely change your opinion of the guy. And that scene was so powerful. Like, he was just he was like, talk about masterclass in acting. God, Stashwick was amazing.
Yeah, incredible. Setting the world on fire. Okay, here we go. So this is my pick. Round 4 is actually a nice little bookend to that incredible no-win scenario. 5 words and a hashtag. 5-card stud, nothing wild, hashtag, and the sky's the limit, of course. It's the TNG Season 7 finale, all good things. And, I mean, it's incredible to think about this episode now, of course. When you watch it now, you've got the perspective of 3 seasons of Picard as well, and 4 movies as well. Mm-hmm. But at the time, this episode, so fresh and sharp. And I mean, it stood alone just as an episode, it's with an incredible concept and incredible ideas and execution. But the fact that it was a series finale and it was happening at a moment in Star Trek when we knew it was the series finale, but it wasn't the end because there was going to be movies. And it was just remembering back to that time, it was just nuts to think how they could hit such a home run with this perfect 2-part 2-hour episode of Star Trek. It's Brandon Bragg and Ron Moore script. It's one of my all-time favorites. Perfect episode, perfect ending. You know, the crew is a family. Jean-Luc is at the table with him. They're moving forward together. Ross, what's your take?
So I did think about this as well because it is such a powerful piece. You know, it's a fantastic episode, which you will love. I watched it not that long ago, and it's just as enjoyable every time I watched it. I do think it comes out of that sort of golden moment where they're producing just massive swathes of Star Trek. Right. They've just finished Next Generation. They've got the movie on the way. Deep Space Nine is going, and Voyager must be percolating somewhere in the background as well as a show that's about to begin. Just the sheer amount that they're producing, and they still manage to come out with such a fantastic story, which I think is one of the best finales of any TV show you'll ever watch.
Correct.
And maybe only because we knew, even at the time, it wasn't really the last thing you were going to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if that made a difference for how it was perceived. Maybe it did. I don't know. I never really considered that.
You know, when the original series came to an end, it was an end. And, you know, briefly it pops back up with the animated series. But in the 90s, Star Trek was ubiquitous. It was everywhere. They weren't going to let this go. And we knew it was coming. We knew the film was coming as well.
But every other series finale is a series finale. Like, you know, okay, this is the end. There's nothing else currently planned. With TNG, it was something else currently planned. So maybe it did kind of change the percent. I don't know. That's interesting. I never really thought about it in that way. Debbie?
Just the other thing to me about this particular episode, and I remember being so impressed at the time that it was actually aired, how well they recreated season 1.
Yeah.
Like it was just really good. They just did such a great job of recreating season 1, just bringing Cole Meany back. And of course, Yar, those flashback scenes were done so well. I just really liked it. It made it really added to the episode.
You know, you said it bookended really nicely with my pick, and I have to agree, especially because when you look at some of these big episodes, you know, you get partway through the episode and you're like, all right, I kind of see what they're trying to unfold here. And then by the end, you're like, wow, that was Star Trek. You know, like there's something just so ingrained in the DNA of that episode. Like with No Scenario, you got the Rytonian space babies. Like, that's wild. That's so Star Trek, you know. Here you've got the singularity, and you've got Q. Speaking of bookends, Q bookending the whole show, you know.
All of it,
like, and then to also bookend it in Picard too. Like, they literally shoved him in the very last, you know, end credit scene of season 3. Like,
for that one fraction of a second, you were open to options you had never considered. That is the exploration that awaits you. Not mapping stars and studying nebula, but charting the unknown possibilities of existence.
Q, what is it that you're trying to tell me?
You'll find out. In any case, I'll be watching. And if you're very lucky, I'll drop by to say hello from time to time. See you out there.
Well, yeah, it's great. It's so good.
Even Shaw references this episode.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because he makes this thing about
he does.
And in the universe, in the Devron system.
Yeah, he does mention the Devron system. Oh god, so good.
All that electromagnetic soup, it's wreaking havoc on our nervous system.
Okay, fantastic. Let's go to the soup round. Round 3. Ross, what's your number 3 pick for episodes you want to watch again for the first time?
Okay, so I did pick this episode purely because I really like it. And, well, I'll explain more afterwards. Chronologically compromised commander kidnaps captain. #Voy, variably ordered years. And I've picked Voyager Season 7, Episode 11, Shattered. Now, I really do like this episode. And I think it's just a nice episode where they just do some nice 90s genre sci-fi. But they also pull back in all the other episodes that we've seen. And then they sort of get you excited to go back and watch those episodes again and like remember where Voyager's been and what's it doing. And I just think it's just a fun episode to watch. And I just do like, I like going into an episode of like week by week science fiction where you don't know what's going to happen. You have no idea what's going to come up on the screen. There's not a story that's continuing. It's just, here's the new thing. Blam, it's amazing. And here they just did it so well, and they called back to all the really exciting moments from the previous 7 years. And then it's just a really satisfying way of looking at the Chakotay-Janeway relationship and what happened and what didn't happen and how things worked. And I just really like it. And I like the fact that I like being excited by seeing all of the previous years represented. And so I think if I could go back and watch this one again, I think I just really, really like it. And that was it. That was purely why I picked it.
I love it. That's literally the driver for my convoluted Prime Directive I talked about earlier. Just like, these are the ones I just want to relive again because I've seen them too many times, and now I just want it to be fresh because it's so good. Just a standalone, kick-ass episode of Voyager in the 7th season that kind of catches the whole series into kind of a nutshell, and just is so rewarding for somebody who's watched it all and been embedded in it and loves it. It's a fantastic episode and a nice little bookend for all good things too, with kind of the time jumping and moving around. Even though I went out of order and went to you instead of Deb for the last pick.
That's all right, variably ordered.
That's what we're doing. Everything's out of order right now. So we're
I think a lot of the picks we're picking, they're not just episodes, but they pull into other episodes. Like they show you how expansive it is. I really feel like all of our picks have had that sort of broad reach beyond their episodes.
I'm looking at the list right now. Almost every single one has a little bit of a layer of that. So I love it. Deb, what's your take on Shattered?
Love it. Really good episode. And honestly, but I feel like I got to go back and rewatch that one. Like I haven't seen it in a hot minute.
You get to go watch it for the first time, it sounds like.
I get to. I mean, I know it, but I feel like, that's one that, like, it isn't a go-to for me. So I'm like, I need to take a look at that again. Yes.
You won't regret it.
And that's a good summary too. Sorry, Caleb. All of my picks are go-to episodes for me that I've watched too many times that I want to go back to and see fresh. Caleb, Shattered.
So to Deb's point, so I'm currently doing a Voyager rewatch, and it's my first Voyager rewatch all the way through. And there's a ton of episodes I just have zero memory of. But awesome. Shattered is one that sticks with you. I remember every minute of Shattered, and I've only seen it one time. Like that episode. Absolutely. But as you're watching it unfold and realizing, like how much of this is tied to Seska, right? Like that's crazy. I didn't even remember who Seska was by the time I got to season 7 of my first Voyager watch. So I'm like, now that I have rewatched the first 3 seasons and I'm like, okay, I can't wait till I get to Shattered and see how Seska plays into this whole thing from the grave. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome pick. All right. Let's go back to Debbie for your super round pick. What do you got?
I'm throwing in, I know you didn't, but I'm throwing TOS in here.
Okay.
So my 5 words are superb acting by a guest star, hashtag Decker versus Planet Killer. Oh. And I picked season 2, episode 6, The Doomsday Machine.
Fantastic.
I just like, this is kind of just like what you were saying earlier, Jim. Like I saw TOS like original run when I was really little, and then ad nauseum when those were the only 79 things of Star Trek to watch. That was all that existed.
10 years. Yep.
Yeah. Like and so I've seen them all, but like I saw them all as a kid, and I've seen them so many times that I don't regularly go back and pick up a TOS episode because I feel like I've seen them all a bazillion times. So I just wanted to pick one. And when I like Decker, oh my God, he was so awesome in that episode. Like he was deranged and he was PTSD. But then at the same time, you know, like when he sat there and like kind of beckoned Spock to come down and just, he was fantastic. Like I think he outacted everybody in the whole episode. And so I kind of just picked that as I wish, like as a grown-up, I could see that for the first time.
I'm so glad you picked this because everything you said there, that's exactly, I'm in this different headspace for TOS, which is why something like this isn't on my list. There's something about TOS in my mind that when I rewatch these episodes, I never feel like, man, I've seen this so many times, or I know exactly what's happening coming up, and I wish I could see it with fresher eyes. I don't know. There's something about TOS where every time I'm watching it, I'm just like, I'm seeing new things, even though I've probably seen this episode more than 100 times, not an exaggeration. So yeah, it's weird that how my look at this is so different. But speaking of this episode, I mean, all-time classic, probably in my top 10 of all Star Trek episodes ever. It's just perfection in terms of Commodore Decker, the great William Wyndham.
His whole like
masterclass.
There is no fourth planet, and he's just he's grief-stricken. And I just, like I said, like I wish I could see that now for the first time.
Well, you have that, but then you also have moments like, I don't recognize your authority to relieve me. I mean, he's so good. The guy's an absolute genius.
You go from like empathy for him and to like hating him at the same time.
I want a Lower Decks holodeck episode where it's Liam Shaw and Matt Decker in a room together.
Oh my God.
Because both their acting abilities are just so dang good, you know. That's a pipe dream. But anyway, I mean, Doomsday Machine was probably one of the first Trek memories I ever had. Absolutely brilliant episode. It was on my not secondary systems. It was on my long list. Yeah. Didn't quite meet my prime directive with, you know, having a, oh my God, they really went there kind of thing. But I think, as Ross was saying, like all of our picks for the most part have pulled in something else that's made the world more expansive, right? And so with my secondary systems, you'll kind of see that a little bit in my picks. So Doomsday Machine didn't quite make it, but still a great pick, and I'd love to watch it for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely stellar episode, because of the way I watched the original series, it was always on TV, but I was a kid, I had no control over when it was on or what I was watching, so I watched dozens of episodes again and again, and it was all sort of a blur until I came back as an adult and like purposely went back to rewatch it. And this episode does stand out as being one of the most dramatic. And Wyndham, the actor, he is absolutely excellent, and he really conveys all those massive emotions, and he's so sweaty. I mean, he makes you feel sick just like watching him act. He's so good.
Oh my God, so good. He is sweaty.
He's sweaty.
Caleb, what's your super round pick?
My super round pick, 5 words. Previously on Propel's sibling confrontation. # now do you see? It's Star Trek Discovery, if memory serves. Part of it, just, you know, it's what, 2018? Was that when season 2 was airing? And you turn on the episode, I don't really think Ready Room is as big of a thing back then. There's not a whole lot of spoilers and teasers out there. And the first thing you see, the cage? What?
Right.
Where are you going with this?
So good.
And then to see it unfold, and as Ross said, the flavors of this deeper relationship Burnham has with the entire family, and you see that in Lethe with Sarek, and now you're finally getting to what happened with her and Spock, and just seeing the impact of the Red Angel on both of them. And it's just such a clever way to incorporate the Telosians to kind of reveal that, and then also to heal Spock of his time sickness. It's just like, I don't know. It's one of those ones that as I watch it over and over, it's still great. It's still great, but it doesn't have the same feel as that first time through, really witnessing all those subtle little callbacks to the cage and the menagerie. Right. And so it's one I wish I could see again for the first time.
Your list is amazing, Caleb, because I really didn't consider the new stuff, just because I just kind of put out of my head like, no, it's too new. So I don't have the right to feel like I need to go back and watch for the first time because it's too new. But when you talk about these, every single pick, I've just been like, oh my God, yes. This one, and I've said this many times on TrekRanks, so I apologize, but that moment where it was an unbelievable shot from a distance where Burnham's outside the shuttle kind of exploring, and she looks back at the shuttle and you see a woman walk into it, and it just hit me. And I literally fell out of my chair like, is that Vina? Oh my God. It never even crossed my mind until that second in time I would ever see Vina again in my life on Star Trek, let alone in that episode going back to Talos 4. And it's like, holy shit, that's Vina. I mean, that moment blew me away and set the tone for everything that episode was doing. Ross?
I absolutely, so of all of the Discovery episodes, this is one of the ones I absolutely love. The opening scene, I can't tell you how excited I was to see that happen. It just made me think, the guys behind the scenes, they know me. They know what I want to see. They know I want to see this brought together, and that I want to see Star Trek and New Star Trek being the same thing. And I just loved it. I absolutely loved the recap of the cage, and then the cut to the new Pike, from original Pike to new Pike. I just thought it was absolutely wonderful. And again, this speaks to the idea that you're changing the whole history of Star Trek with these different looks at what the character's done and how they interact now and what they'd have done before. It's so wonderful and so well done. What's my one? I do have a gripe for this episode. What is it? I never got over how different the Telosians looked. I thought they looked really creepy originally, and I couldn't.
It's funny you say that, because I did get over it.
Of course you did.
Because I know exactly what you're saying, but then now when I rewatch it, I'm like, no, it actually works. It actually works pretty good. But I
like
hear
the
you.
Pulsating veins. I like that.
Veins,
I like those big
miss.
Veins.
Yeah, it is funny, and not that we don't like to do this on TrekRanks, but it is funny when I look to think that how much better they were on TOS with the time difference and the budget restraints and everything, just because of how clever they were in terms of the small diminutive nature, and the makeup was so good. They were so creepy. They just stand the test of time in a way that these Telosians aren't special.
They look great.
Yeah, they're good. They're fine, but they're not special like TOS was. Sorry, we're digressing. Deb.
Well, they were so good, Jim, that the network wanted to have nothing to do with them, so the show didn't get the green light.
You're right.
But that's part of the reason, right? I think
too cerebral.
They were too cerebral.
Oh, I know.
Now,
I know.
50 years later, you look at them and it's like, holy crap, these are creepy, man. Still creeping me out. Anyway, sorry.
This is a great pick. I mean, not only the whole revisiting of everything about Talos 4, which was phenomenal, like it really was too. It was the first time that this season that Ethan Peck actually got to act like he really wasn't seen up until this point. And, he was kind of just in the trance or the state. And now you really got to see him as Spock and, how my favorite character. So I just was dying to see him in action. And this whole episode was fantastic. Great pick, Caleb.
And it's a sequel to The Cage. And a prequel to the Menagerie. So I mean, it's just I love episodes that kind of serve all these dual purposes. And in our stats, I am going to count this as the 4th time Spock dies, because he definitely dies a little bit inside when Burnham crushes his soul at the end. So, okay, Soup Round, my number 3 pick. I can't believe I've only picked this episode one time previously, and this starts my run of 3 episodes that. All these next 3 picks for me are all about, damn it, I've just watched them too many times. God damn it. I wish I could watch them again with fresh eyes. This is my number 1 all-time Star Trek Voyager favorite episode, 5 words and a hashtag. Weird planet displaced in time, hashtag ground shaker, light bringers. Of course, it's blink of an eye. And I don't think I need to say much. I just want to recapture the feeling of seeing this for the first time, because it blew me away. The sci-fi conceit, the concept, the way the characters were all interacting. You send the doctor down there for 3 seconds and he's been there for 3 years. It's insanity. Just so much going on. The technobabble, the interaction. You get young Daniel Day Kim showing up early in his career. Just the skyship friends, seeing all the different variations of the planet, and just the fact that that's Voyager up there as a star, and they're worshiping it, and then they're studying it, and then they're figuring out it's a spaceship. My God, we're gonna go talk to it. Incredible. Just the most incredible story idea here. It's a Joe Menosky story idea. I think he didn't write it, but it was one of his wacky ideas. So just I love it. Unbelievable, great science fiction concept. And I want to watch it again for the first time. Debbie, what's your take?
Aren't you going to sing the lullaby? I was waiting.
Oh, yeah.
To sing the lullaby.
Sorry. Not this time.
I can't. Yeah.
Star of the night. Sorry. Come to take my tears away.
Sorry. I knew you would.
Star of the night, star of the day. Come to take my tears away, make my life always bright. It's a child's prayer.
To Voyager?
Yes.
I hope you're not disappointed.
How often does your very first dream come true? Of course, I'll help you.
The thing that I love, it's such a unique concept. Like the idea that Voyager up in orbit there, like, actually kind of affects their whole civilization just because of the weird way the planet goes fast. And I just, it's a fantastic episode. I can't say anything more. Love it.
Beautiful. Ross?
I mean, it's just it's arguably the best episode of Voyager. It's so good. And it is that genre sci-fi. Like, there's no reason that was an episode that was in that season at that time. It just pops up. We've got a sci-fi idea. Here we go. 1 episode, bash it out in 45 minutes. But it also messes with the setup of the show, doesn't it? It doesn't just start with, we found an anomaly. I mean, it does start like that. But they find the anomaly, but you also get the whole lifespan of the planet. It's a whole other thing happening. The B story is the evolution of this society, which is just wild that could just be a B plot. In a Star Trek story, the evolution of an entire society.
Yeah.
And it is massive, and it is such a good episode, and it is one of the sort of jaw-dropping, this one's going to stay with me. And it does, doesn't it? This is one of the best.
Yeah, it's a great point. The way the B story kind of becomes going back to the planet and seeing a different time era where they're watching it. Caleb?
Yeah, this is a great one. It was on my long list. It almost made my 5 secondary systems, but it's the other thing too, thinking about concepts that were born out of other Trek concepts, right? We have the original series. Yeah, it's the 3rd season. It's not great, but wink of an eye, Really, and Blink of an Eye are kind of the same concept, but exactly spun out a little bit. You fleshed it out. You did it in honestly, a better way. Blink of an Eye did that 100 times better than Wink of an Eye ever could. So it's definitely a great pick, and yeah, I would love to see that again for the first time.
I love it. Side note: Wink of an Eye rules too. I love it. Okay, round 2 episodes you want to watch again for the first time, Debbie.
Okay. Talk about, this is a little bit of a bookend, something we've discussed earlier. Terrifying intro to the Borg. # carving us up like a roast.
Yes.
And it's season 2, episode 16, Q Who.
100% on my secondary system.
This episode hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, when you think about the Q things, that, oh yeah, they were Robin Hood and all this other stuff and Farpoint, and then he comes back and does this, and I can remember being on the edge of my seat the whole time this was on, and the Borg were absolutely terrifying. They were so terrifying. And it was like, how are they going to get out of this? How are they going to get out of this? And I would just love to go back, and once again, I'd love to just have no knowledge, be seeing it for the first time.
And this is one of those episodes where Broken Record Moorhouse says, go back and remember what it was like when you watched this for the first time, because the Borg, now we've seen every possible variation of it since this time. When this episode aired, the concept of not being able to speak to the enemy that's destroying you was just mind-blowing. Like, that's not something that ever existed in terms of anything in my world or universe. So it was just terrifying to just see, they're relentless. They're coming. They're going to take you. They're not listening to you. They don't care. They're more powerful. There's nothing you can do. You can't stop the reason with them. It's absolutely a masterpiece. And the only reason that's not on my list is because I can still kind of recapture that when I watch this, because it's done so well. Ross, what's your take?
I had to work very hard not to put the Borg in my list, because I'm a gigantic Borg fan. I remember watching this episode and being absolutely thrilled with the kind of enemy they were and how that sort of developed. And for me, the Borg became, again, they hit sort of the cultural subconscious, didn't they? They became as prevalent as the Klingons and as well known as the Vulcans, the Borg. And not many other Star Trek species have reached that sort of level. But that they are one from the 80s that they've done it. They're there. Everyone knows what the Borg are. Everyone knows who they are and what they do. And you could probably quote them. Anyone could probably quote a line of them as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the Vulcans, Romulans, Borg, and Kazon, right? I mean, those are the 4. So.
Yeah, no, obviously the Kazon, mate. I can't believe I missed those out.
That's why Shatter got brought out.
I absolutely, obviously, was, as a kid watching this, was just having the time of my life.
Yeah.
They were so terrifying.
So terrifying. God.
Yeah, I loved it. I was so there for it.
This is such an awesome pick, Caleb.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, especially now that there's varying camps of people who are possibly still really energized about the Borg or a little tired of the Borg, like you said.
I don't believe it.
I know, right? No way. Hopefully this is finally the end this time, you guys. No, it's a perfect setup. You get Q back from the beginning of the season, or sorry, the beginning of the series. Just more hijinks, but this is the threatening dark side of Q. That I know there's Q the prankster, and Q the prankster has his place, but this is the dark, terrifying Q. And that when we get those flavors back in Picard season 2, which, surprise, also is the Borg, to a degree, right?
Right. No, it's just all 3 seasons is the Borg.
That's true. It really is. It really is.
It's not even a debate.
No, it's great to see Q come back and then really be as terrifying as the Borg are in this case, because Picard really has to bend down and say, I need you. Like, please stop screwing with us. Get us out of this situation. Right. This is awful.
So glad you referenced that. Another defining moment for Picard, right? And a different kind of hero, a different kind of solution that you haven't seen that often on TV. You want me to get on my knee and say I need you? I need you. So good.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Okay. Stop doing impersonations, Moorhouse. Ross, what's your number 2 pick?
Okay. 5 words. Pitch perfect production. No notes. Hashtag the sound of their voices. And I have picked a very recent episode, which is Strange New Worlds Subspace Rhapsody. And that is purely for the sheer love of this episode, which I have watched. I mean, you say like I've watched it 100 times. I've watched it 100 times. I've listened to it a dozen. I've listened to the soundtrack in the car. I've made my kids listen to it. Even my wife has watched the episode and she said she enjoyed it. And that was it. I just wanted to watch somebody else watch it and be like, look at this. Isn't it brilliant what they've done? They're singing a song and it's actually really well done. It's not naff. It's great. And I mean, I'm not sure how I felt about it. I knew it was coming, or we all sort of speculated, and I wasn't sure about what I'd think about Subspace Rhapsody. And I had to eat all of those thoughts when it came out because I instantly loved it and have consumed it again and again and again. I absolutely love this episode. And I just, to recapture that feeling I had when I watched it for the first time, like, oh my God, they've done such a good job. This is so well done. It's so funny and it's so clever. And I enjoy like going back and hearing the lyrics and hearing all the clever wordplay they put in. Obviously, that's my thing I like to do. It did it for me. And like listening to the Spock song, which was sort of a redo of Chapel's song, and then I'm the X and Soul for Why. I was like, oh my God, this is great. I love that they've done this. I love how they've done it. And I've eaten it up so much. To go back and watch it again and just to feel that sort of pure exhilaration, I would like to do that.
Okay, I'm so glad you picked this. And spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't heard our previous episode, the top 5 ensemble episodes. I was so disappointed that looking back while I was editing that Subspace Rhapsody didn't make our ensemble episodes because it really should have. So the fact that it made it in this episode just is so gratifying.
And with such massive enthusiasm. Like,
I couldn't be any more enthusiastic as well.
I couldn't be more enthusiastic. I was so excited to watch it.
It's the best.
I love it.
You'll be happy that when, like on the previous, you announced the ensemble topic.
Yeah.
And I was yelling at my radio. Subspace Rhapsody.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I know.
Nobody picked that.
I know. It should have been picked. I eliminated it thinking I did one of those. I think someone else will pick it, so I'm going to pick something else crazy. This is a masterpiece. Caleb, what's your take?
The intermix chamber and containment fields are stable. It's so good.
So good.
I mean, Statter support, the whole album, honestly, the whole soundtrack. It's made my top 5 Spotify for sure. I mean, I've listened to it to like.
I mean, that's a given at this point.
Easily. But what's funny is I've actually only watched this episode, I think, twice, even though I've listened to the soundtrack so many times, because I waited so long after watching it the first time that I think I gave myself a solid 2 months before rewatching it again because I just wanted to preserve that feeling. Right, Ross?
Yeah.
Like it's just so. It was just.
I watched it the next day. I watched it and then watched it again the next day, and then made my wife watch it. I think I watched it maybe twice on the first day. I loved it.
Oh, so it's so good. I preserved it for a really long time. I ended up rewatching it, I think, in October. But it just. Yeah, and there's so much story there too, and if you just listen to the soundtrack, like you actually are still missing a lot of story.
Yeah,
like,
they pull it together. It's the end of the series, isn't it? They pull together the story threads, and it's nice because it's emotional and it's all the sort of the romance and the sort of coupley threads that they sort of pull together and decide what they're doing with, and they sort of use this episode, which is appropriate because it is an episode where it speaks to how people are feeling and the emotions being brought to the surface, and they tie it up here in time for a phenomenally exciting finale that sets you up for season 3.
Amazing. Well, the benefit of being a stat nerd who writes everything down and tracks everything, I have watched it 9 times, so I need to get to double digits, so maybe I'll do that tonight. Okay, masterpiece. I love that pick. Caleb, what's your number 2 pick?
My number 2 pick, I'm actually going to go with the hashtag first and then the 5 words. The hashtag is labor of love, and the 5 words, and this is for Ross too, by the way, because it's alliterative. Walkie's wonderful world building wisdom wows. It's Kobayashi from Star Trek.
That's such a smart pick.
It's so good. It's so good. But I think for me, it definitely loses the magic a little bit on rewatch because I know it's coming.
I hear
you know.
Yeah.
But the first time and realizing, oh, this isn't AI, this isn't some other crap that they did. No, he literally spent hours and hours and hours pulling these audio clips from libraries just to make the script work. Like that is just so epic in scope, and for the purpose of teaching Dal, the importance of hard decisions and how to be a captain, like that's one of the biggest Star Trek lessons, just how do you manage your team and boost your team and lift them up, and can't just be centric on you, you can't be the arbiter of everything, no matter how many times you try.
Gotta keep them on their toes, Jelly Man. I've blown up so many times. I see now. The only way out is chaos. 3, 2, 1. Presto! Got a present for you, and it comes with a message. What's that old Klingon saying again? Oh, yeah. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Scotty! Eject warp core!
You got it, Captain.
Lasers! Full spread!
It's one of those ones that's super special, obviously, the way the script plays out, but 10 times more special the first time through because of all the source audio clips and hearing, especially people, like you said, that have passed away, like hearing Rene Aubergine-Wag.
Yeah.
That was so close. He had just passed away, I think, a year before when that aired. Oh, man.
And now, I just rewatched it yesterday as Prodigy drops on Netflix as we record this. And yeah, hearing Nichelle Nichols, that blew me away too. I had that thought as well. So this is my favorite Prodigy episode. I love it. I totally get what you're saying though. This is also one of those ones that, the more you rewatch it, the more I hate saying, loses its luster or anything like that. But there's something about the original, that first time when something's that clever and that unique, it stands out.
I agree. It's one of those things that you can't ever have the surprise again. And to be able to go back and not know that's coming again would be fantastic.
Yeah, it is so wonderful when you watch it and you get all of those voices. And I think even the next couple of times, I think I watched it and I was trying to figure out what lines have these come from, because what episodes are these from? Can I figure it out without looking it up?
We figured that out on TrekCore and posted it in our review.
Yeah.
Every line.
That's where I looked it up in the end. Yeah. And it is such a wonderful episode, and it is nice. And again, I feel like it just ties not only in sort of content where they actually bring back actors from across the whole span of the series, but also the actual premise of the show itself, where he's doing the Kobayashi Maru, which is something we've talked about so many times.
Yeah.
We've discussed it, but we so rarely get a proper look at. We so rarely see it happen. But here it is. This is a Star Trek staple. People are put into no-win situations as a test, and we see what they do in that test, and we see how they're working out. That's a classic Star Trek story, and this was great.
Fantastic. All right, let's close out round 2. My 5 words and a hashtag. Look beyond your provincial attitudes, hashtag, and volatile nature. It is Enterprise Season 1, Episode 1, Broken Bow. One of my all-time favorites, the series that just introduces everything in Star Trek, and I love it so much. It's my favorite premiere episode of all Star Trek. It's number 2 on my Enterprise TrekRanks list, and I have watched this episode so many times. I wish I could watch it again for the first time. Everything in this episode, from the introduction of Archer's conflict with the Vulcans and human conflict, and Archer and T'Pol's introduction is one of the best things ever, with the restraining myself from knocking you on your ass, and I just love this episode. The launch, Zefram Cochrane, the Suliban introduction. This is just a fun episode. They do so many good stuff. They got the production's just fantastic. This is Rick Berman and Brandon Braga's script. James Conway directed. My favorite Trek pilot. I love it. Deb, what's your take on Broken Bow?
Awesome pilot, definitely. I loved how much they brought in bits of the familiar, but then they also made it their own. And that's a tough thing because it's a prequel. They had to be faithful to what came before, even though they were before that, if I'm doing circular logic here, but you had to bring in something that was unique that hadn't been discussed before. I think they really did a great job with it.
Yeah,
Love
the best case of that visually was the NX-01 too, which I didn't even mention. That's that.
100%.
So
100%.
So I remember watching this when it first came out, and it came out. This was the first Star Trek which wasn't shown on the BBC. This is when it moved to Channel 4.
Oh, interesting.
They had adverts, so the BBC is advert free. And I remember seeing billboards for Enterprise when I was living in Southampton, and the billboard was a picture of the NX-01 and a little line, a speech bubble coming out of it saying "Kirk who?" And I was really Kirk who? 'Cause, yeah, this is a prequel.
That's crazy.
And I was really excited to watch it. And I remember enjoying the episode. I remember enjoying it and thinking it was good, but I remember being completely thrown by the theme tune and thinking, and like, I was like, is this going to be every episode? Or is this the first one?
I didn't mention that.
I was really thrown by it when I watched it, and I really enjoyed it. My overriding thought was, I wonder if the next episode will have the same theme tune, or whether they'll just have like a musical thing. Or are they going to keep doing this?
I remember thinking, I can't believe they're going to play this before every episode. But like those Talosians, I've grown to love it. I have no issue with it.
And that's it. Do you know what? I this did make my long list, actually, this episode. And I actually didn't pick it because of the theme tune, but maybe I should have. I should have, because now I would skip it. Now I would skip it on Netflix.
That's true. Just skip it.
This is a great pick. I have only recently, not recently, within the last 5 years, I did my first Enterprise watch.
Oh, right.
And to know it's a prequel and to have your opening, moments of the episode be, there's a Klingon in a barn? What the heck is going on here?
That was so good. That was so good.
Like, we're on Earth with Klingons and barns? What? And then to see where it ends up unfolding, it's just, it's great. Like you said, the Suliban are a really, really cool species, and
underrated.
They are underrated. Absolutely.
I can't believe we never saw them. I can't believe we didn't see them again once they were out in season 3 and season 2. I can't believe we didn't see them again.
Well, we've seen them one time with beautiful Mike McMahon sticking it on the lower decks, sticking it on Mariner's Murder board. So
yes, they were the Suliban were just out of this world. I absolutely loved them. And the other thing I remember was being like, "Oh, they've got the Klingon foreheads. They've done it." And I just remember being excited that they had the Klingon foreheads.
Yeah, that's right. Good stuff. All right. Round 1 of episodes you want to watch again for the first time. Debbie, what do you got?
Begin round 1. Okay, my number 1 pick kind of comes full circle to Ross and Caleb's comments about my number 5. So my 5 words are: wanted to see it without spoilers. #Cisco's a prophet. And it's the series finale for Deep Space Nine, What You Leave Behind.
That's a good one.
Like where I was in my life when DS9 was on air, like I began watching it weekly. And I think somewhere in season 3, things were really going sideways in my personal life. And I had chunks of weeks where I didn't see it. And then when I would come back, because it was serialized, I was like, I don't know what's going on. And so I literally dropped watching it. And so by the time I came around to watching it, it was in the Netflix days and really being a completionist on it. But by then I knew what happened. I'd never seen it, but I knew what happened in the end. And I just was like, I wish I had seen it without the foreknowledge of how it ended. That's all.
That's amazing. This one was definitely on my secondary systems. Ross.
I mean, these big episodes, they are just the ones that you think they were so good when I watched it. I want to go back and watch it again. And I think there's a single episode that we've talked about that I wouldn't think I'd love to go back and not know what was going to happen and just be absolutely wowed. And I think this episode is just such a massive culmination of everything that's gone on for 7 years, it has so much weight on it that, to watch again for the first time, you would just be gobsmacked, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And just knowing where the journey was for Cisco for those first few seasons, just to think, man, he didn't want to be the emissary, and then he kind of begrudgingly, and then he embraced it, and now he's a prophet. And his mom's a prophet. This is nuts. Or a wormhole alien, I should say. Caleb, what's your take?
This is a brilliant pick. And speaking of bookends, right, tying it all the way back to the very first episode with Emissary, it's just crazy to think how rich and layered, and it makes you feel like this was the long game the whole time. And I'm not sure if that actually was the case.
I mean, from a showrunner perspective, I'm pretty sure this is where they were going with it from the beginning. So pretty amazing the way that it all comes together across 7 seasons. And special shout out to that season 8 of the DS9 documentary. And
definitely.
I want that.
I'm all in on that. I'm all in.
Definitely.
For sure. Okay, Ross, what's your number 1 pick?
Okay, so I've picked 1 episode, but it represents a bit more, but I'll go into it in a second. I've written 2 5-words, so you can have them both.
Okay.
Silicon Con convinces concerned constable, or you can have Creeping Crystal captures Kira copy. #letter of recommendation. And I've picked Deep Space Nine's Series 3, Heart of Stone.
I was going to say, is this Heart of Stone? Wow.
That's what I was thinking too.
Okay. Wow.
But I've picked it because it represents the entirety of Deep Space Nine for me. There is lots of stuff that goes on here. This episode, it's not the best episode in the world.
Yeah.
And the A and the B plots have literally nothing to do with each other. If you don't know what's gone on in the previous episodes and seasons, this won't necessarily make loads of sense. And you really need to have bought into Deep Space Nine for this episode to make sense. Both the A and the B plots won't really do anything for you unless you're bought into it. And this is where Odo confesses his love to Kira, and we've known about that for a while, but he actually says it out loud. This is where you see how devious the changelings are. This was all a ruse, massively. This is where Nog decides he wants to join Starfleet, and that's so left field. He wants to be in Starfleet, okay. But then going forward, all of these things play out, and Kira and Odo become a couple, and Nog joins Starfleet. He doesn't join Starfleet; he becomes absolutely essential to the war effort. The changeling conflict just grows and grows and grows, and Odo's relationship with the Founders gets more tricky and more complicated as things go on. It just is. It's not a turning point, but it's such a bit in the middle that it's just goes in both directions for the series. And it's just, I wanted to say, I would love to watch Deep Space Nine again from the beginning and not know. And just not know what's going to happen and have that. When it first came out, I was all in for Deep Space Nine. That was the first time I could be excited for a new Star Trek show, because before that, they'd always been on TV and I'd sort of become aware of them. Whereas here, I was excited to watch it coming in. I knew what was coming. I'd read about the characters. I was buying the Star Trek magazines. I was so thrilled to watch it, and I absolutely, even the first series, which is a bit clanky, but I did love every episode, and I would happily, I've watched every episode in season 1 so many times. I just love to watch it again, not knowing what I know and just seeing how it all goes. And even when I got to Heart of Stone, which is all right, but knowing that it carries on growing, it just gets bigger and bigger from here.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Such a cool pick. And I don't think I've ever really thought about this episode in that interesting way before, that we know it's not the best episode of Star Trek, but the elements are so critical to what you see in season 7 and literally in Debbie's pick, her number 1 pick.
Completely. I feel like I've copied you, Debbie, all the way through, actually.
It's incredible how this one is such a linchpin to that. And not even that it's a linchpin, because it's not like this one could disappear and it wouldn't matter that much.
Yeah,
but the fact that it exists,
still carry on.
Right, the fact that it exists and it has such a link towards the end of the series 4 years later is absolutely nuts. That's wow, what a cool deep cut pick. Caleb, what you think?
Yeah, I love this pick. I know it's definitely a deep cut, but one of the things I keep thinking about throughout this whole discussion is how the first couple of seasons of Deep Space Nine are very, all the like Bajoran religion stuff is going on. You've got a lot of Cardassian stuff going on. Still a lot of animosity from that, but there's really not a whole lot of the Dominion. We know what Odo is. We know he's a changeling. We see him mostly use his powers for good, up to this point in the series. And now to see someone do the bait and switch on him and try to that whole, but it's just like that. There are other changelings out here and they're not, benefactors. They're not operating the same way Odo is, and that's terrifying. Like this is like you said, it sets up so much.
Fantastic. Caleb, how about you? What's your number one pick?
All right. 5 words. Subversive culmination of Pac-led plot. # underdog story. And it's Lower Decks Wedge Douche.
You did it.
I had to leave that at number 1. It's one of those ones. This is one that doesn't lose its luster. Every time I watch it, it's still just so good. But the part that really you'll never get again that you get during that first watch is seeing these series of vignettes and saying, oh, that's really cool. They're doing a spin on Lower Decks. And then getting 2/3 through the episode and seeing all of them merge together and realize, oh, wait, this is the finale to this big overarching plot for 2 seasons. And it's happening now. What? Where did that come from? It's so out of left field, You'll never quite get that same taste knowing that the payoff is coming with the Pac-Leds finally resolving. It's such a great episode. It's awesome to see the vignettes with T'Lyn and Ma'a, and then to bring it all together with all the Lower Deckers. And it's just like, it's a true underdog story. It's just great.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's one of my all-time favorite episodes of Star Trek. Was not on my short list because this is one that, man, maybe in 10 years when we redo this episode, it'll be on my want to go back. Because every time I watch this, I'm just blown away by the narrative scope and the way that the things that we're seeing for the first time ever. But I love that you have thought about this topic in a different way and looked at all these recent episodes and how critical they are. And wow, this one, and this is that moment in Lower Decks. Well, there's a few of them, but this is one of them where you're just like, how good is this show? This is like real, pure, deep cut Star Trek. Amazing. Debbie, what's your take?
Yes, and thanks for bringing the little Borg back up again because they were in the closing sequence. Yeah, what a great, it is a great episode. I feel like you, Jim, like I still, it's fresh enough, but great points, Caleb. I loved how the whole, like, I think people think about the Klingon, the Vulcan ship and all that stuff. And then the part about how it resolves the Pac-Led thing almost is like secondary in what you're thinking about when you rethink about the episode.
Yeah. And to Jim's point about why like Lower Decks, Jim, you've said this plenty of times, but Lower Decks is so good because now it's at a point where it's starting to like refer to itself. Right. And it's not just diving into its own or into the canon of Star Trek, but to its own kind of established element, right? But this does both. You are literally doing Lower Decks on Lower Decks, and then you're also tying together the Pac-Leds from TNG, who have been, honestly, who would have thought that the Pac-Leds would have been a major villain for 2 whole seasons? Like that's just so crazy, good. Right?
Yeah,
it's so good.
Crazy.
Arguably the best episode of Lower Decks. This just speaks to the fact that I would go back and watch every single episode of Star Trek again for the first time if I could. If I had the opportunity, I would go back and do it.
That's what this episode says. Yeah. I love that.
But Wedge Douche is probably my favourite episode of Lower Decks. And for all the reasons that Caleb said, it takes Lower Decks, twists it into Lower Decks again. It just messes with it. It messes with the narrative that you associate with Star Trek. And I like it when shows do that. I like it when they take what you expect and subvert it and make it cleverer or crazy. And it doesn't have to undo the show, but it just makes the show deeper and more thoughtful. And the fact that it all actually weaves together at the end, and it's not just a joke, like a throwaway cutaway to a different ship. It actually is going to bring this whole story together. It's just so well done.
So good.
I could easily.
Man is a genius.
Yeah, he's bringing some of the best stuff. Alas, I will say I've absolutely Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds are just for me, have been some of the best TV shows I've watched in such a long time. And I'm so glad they're Star Treks. I'm so glad that they're part of the thing I really like, so I can go back and keep watching.
So great. An embarrassment of riches. I love it. And Caleb, I will just say, I know we're both, loudmouth blowhards with podcasts, but it's Alex that says that about.
You're right.
About Lower Decks. That's Alex Perry of Weekly Trek, ladies and gentlemen, talking about how great it is that Lower Decks has gone back and become much more referential to itself and not just the history of Star Trek and all of its deep cuts. So one of the great parts of it getting into season 4 and season 5 coming up. Okay, here we go. Round 1, my number 1 pick, and this is purely not even a question. This is the episode I wish I could watch again for the first time and then experience it again now for the next 20 years. So, and this is absolutely crazy. This is only the second time this episode has been picked on TrekRanks, and it's picked one time before. I picked by me, episode 21 in our top 5 doubles, duplicates, and doppelgangers, or whatever it was called. And that was 6 years ago. And this episode has only been picked one time. And when I say the episode, you're going to be like, wow, here we go. I want to watch this one again. 5 words and a hashtag. It's me. I'm the someone. Hashtag I'm the one it finds. And of course, it is Jean-Luc Picard as Cayman in The Inner Light. I truly, truly love this episode. I think it did something really special and extremely unique when it landed 32 years ago in 1992. I just, I won't say it's ahead of its time, but it changed kind of the way the boundaries of science fiction storytelling that was being seen on television at the time and the lengths that you could go to, I think, to challenge your viewers. So it's such a mind-bending episode, and especially in the context of coming out in 1992. We've seen stories like this a million times now since then, but man, this is the first time where I just remember absolutely being blown away by that ending and the fact that, oh my God, this guy just woke up from another lifetime that he just lived in the middle of his current lifetime. And I don't think you can talk about that impact too much. I love it. One of my all-time favorite episodes. It's number 5 for me still at TNG TrekRanks. And it's just perfect. I love it. Ross, what's your take on The Inner Light?
I think what's great about The Inner Light, because again, another arguably up there as one of the best episodes of Star Trek, because it is, so phenomenally well established and well known and loved. What I like about it is he didn't just forget what happened.
Right.
And this was the slight, TNG did have that nice of slight serialization.
Very slight.
It didn't forget that he'd been coming. This was something that was huge. And I don't think you can underestimate the impact that must have had on him to have lived an entire other life, and for that to be part of your identity now as much as your own real life ever was. And he gets back into his real life, but he doesn't forget. He also is sort of this other person simultaneously. He remembers that. That's still part of him. And it's wonderful to see them actually play on that a couple of times. And for the flute becomes sort of a symbol of a life he never had, but it's still so important to him and so real. I think it's great.
You know about it, Father. You've already seen it.
Seen it? What are you talking about? I haven't seen any missile.
Yes, you have, old friend. Don't you remember?
I love every time the flute came back out because it was that nod to that episode again. I loved your hashtag and stuff. I can hear him saying it. It makes me a little bit verklempt.
You saw it just before you came here. We hoped our probe would encounter someone in the future. Someone who could be a teacher. Someone who could tell the others about us.
Oh, it's me. Isn't it? I'm the someone. I'm the one it finds.
It's such a great moment.
Yeah, this is a knockout pick. I mean, but it is one of those ones where when you get to the end, you can only experience it that way for the first time, when you finally figure out what's happening. And then, it's interesting how it parallels your blink of an eye pick, right? Like the doctor was down on the planet for X amount of time, and that's essentially what was going on, but in Picard's head, right? It's just kind of interesting to see that parallel there.
They're both among my favorites. And one of the reasons I picked it too, there's a little bit of a backlash against this episode too. Some people don't like it or don't think it, they think it's overrated. I think it's probably the best way to frame it. No, I just don't think it is, but I think in the context of 2023, maybe it is a little bit in terms of being a little old and dated. But man, when it came out in 92, it was different. It was a trendsetter, just a complete game.
Thinking about now, I just read Patrick Stewart's memoir, and he does mention briefly about this episode because his son is in it, right? Like,
that's right,
and
of course.
That's something that is preserved for all of time. Patrick Stewart on screen with his son, like, and that's
that's very cool.
Just very cool.
Yeah, and I'll add to this, and just the concept of a planet or species out there that's just like, we just want people to remember us. We know we're all going to die. We're not going to be out. So let's just get this thing out there. So hopefully someone can remember us as a planet. That's just a cool idea and very sad. Okay. Incredible. Unbelievable. Let's get into some secondary systems picks quickly. Deb, what do you got?
Let's see what you can do with the secondary system.
I had some Kurtzman error. I did have If Memory Serves. I also had Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad. I think mostly because for me, that episode was the turning point where I started to kind of like Stamets because he was so bristly in the beginning. Right. I had Best of Both Worlds just because that memory of watching that episode and that cliffhanger, just to go back and do that again without foreknowledge was cool. I also had In Purgatory's Shadow because of the reveal of Bashir being on
that's good,
being kidnapped earlier, and then you kind of go back and like when they drag him in and you're like, what in the world?
So good. Yes. So good. Worthy inclusion. Ross, what do you got?
So I have got a couple. I was gonna talk about Lethe, but I feel like I gush about Lethe too much, and I did get to do it this episode as well, but I didn't put it in my main list. Another sort of modern era was the Impossible Box, which I think is I think it's quite an underrated episode.
It's so powerful.
It's great. The Hugh hug, the wooden woman. I mean, it's just a really solid episode. I love the psychology of it. I love the Romulanness of it. I love the Borgness of it. I think it's done extremely well, and I feel like we sort of run roughshod over it. This episode doesn't get as much perhaps attention as it should do because it's so well done.
I totally agree, and the reveal of Soji is so powerfully, so well written and structured.
And just it's cleverly. It's not just revealed, but it's really cleverly revealed. They make it a real adventure to find out what the hell's going on. It's not just a reveal; it's a journey, and I was there for it, and I really enjoyed watching it. I had I watched Trials and Tribulations on VHS. My friend had a copy of it on VHS, and I watched it with him like 50 times. And it must have been then. I didn't wait for it to be on TV. I watched it on VHS, and I loved it. And I would love to go back and relive that time, sitting in his bedroom watching VHS on his tiny little TV, watching Trials and Tribulations. So I might have picked that. Tuvix, I thought about.
Of course you did. Okay.
But I always think about Tuvix, but just to go through that absolutely rip-roaring emotional roller coaster at the end and not know what's going to happen, that would blow me away. I had the Menagerie. I think I may have mentioned before that the last time I watched it, I'd forgotten that Mendes wasn't real.
Every time
I remember thinking,
we've talked about that before.
Thinking, what?
He was one of my picks on They Fooled You.
Yes, he was.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, it was such a great. The characters that fooled you was such a good pick. Sorry,
and I thought about this and thought I sort of almost did watch it again for the first time because that completely took me by surprise.
It's always a surprise. I love it.
And then the last thing, it's the only Star Trek I can actually watch for the first time, is Deep Space is Discovery Season 4, which I still haven't got around to watching yet. But I'm gonna. I mean, this is going to be my New Year's resolution. I'm going to be banging out DSC Season 4 and just finding out what it's all about.
It's so great that you've got it in your back pocket and you have a little bit of time. You got 3 months. You have 3 months to watch.
I actually thought about watching some of it today, and I was like, no, not today. I want to save it for another day.
All right, gonna rewatch Subspace Rhapsody.
Heart of Stone.
Caleb, what do you got?
So I mentioned that I had a secondary list that was pretty much all Berman era episodes. I don't know if anyone noticed, but my top 5, I spread out 1 episode per series of Kurtzman era.
Oh, I know this.
Secondary systems
stats coming
did the same thing.
Okay.
So like Ross for TOS, I picked The Menagerie. For TNG, Reunion.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's so good.
Why do you want to do that to yourself?
I know, but I want to preserve that memory of Kalar because I just love Kalar so much. And then I did also think about Trials and Tribulations, just because that's one of those ones that's like, oh my God, they really went there. Like they really did that. Like that's so cool. For Voyager, course, Oblivion.
Oh yes,
because that's
why do you want to do that to yourself?
Right, because that's an ending you can never. I just watched Demon in my rewatch, and I watched Demon. I'm like, I know Course Oblivion's coming, and but I have this knowledge of what's going to happen to all of them, and it's like, I just want to go in clean, And then the last one for Enterprise, Regeneration. Because it's like, how did they take this this little thread from First Contact and time loop it all the way back into Enterprise, and that goes into this theory now that we also have with Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, where you can really watch Star Trek from TOS on to what we have now with Strange New Worlds, and it is still linear in a way,
yes,
and then you have the actual chronological linearity, but it's ever changing and ever growing, and it's just so good.
I've been waiting here for 30 years. I mean, that line really does help define everything we've seen for 900 episodes of Star Trek. It's so brilliant. Amazing lists. A lot of those were on my list. I had Lethe for sure. My toughest cut was Tinker, Tenor, Dr. Spy. That's another one that I've just watched into the ground, and I would love to go back and see that one fresh because it's so clever.
Yeah.
Also, stuff that hasn't been mentioned, Children of Time from Deep Space Nine, Good Shepherd from Voyager, Endgame from Voyager, and then from Enterprise, Carbon Creek and the Andorian Incident. And my special shout out, because I would love to watch it again, of course, would be the Vulcan trilogy from Star Trek Enterprise, because I've watched that one a few times too. Okay, amazing personal picks for everybody. I love the way we all kind of looked at this from slightly different angles. So let's get into our regeneration cycle. We're going to recap our picks, and I got some very cool stats here.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, Debbie, rattle off your 5.
All right, starting with number 5 was Wrath of Khan. Number 4 was DS9's A Call to Arms. Number 3 was my tip of the hat to TOS, and it was the Doomsday Machine. 2, Q-Who, TNG, the Intro to the Borg. And number 1 was DS9's What You Leave Behind, personally for me, because I wish I had seen it without knowing what was going to happen.
Amazing. So you had 2 from TOS, because we count the movies as TOS, and then 2 from Deep Space Nine, 1 from TNG, and you did the great thing. You had 7 hours of Star Trek in your
of course
picks. So we love that. Ross, what's your breakdown?
So number 5, similarly, was The Wrath of Khan. Number 4 was Short Trek, The Escape Artist for the Fantastic Android Twist. Number 3 was Voyager's Season 7, Shattered, because I just think it's super fun. Number 2 was the absolutely phenomenal Strange New World Subspace Rhapsody. And number 1 was DS9's Season 3, Heart of Stone, but it really was the entire of Deep Space Nine.
So good. So you had 5 different incarnations: TOS, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and then Short Treks and Strange New Worlds. Fantastic. Caleb, going with the Shenzhou 5 spot, as we like to call it now, with all new episodes of the Kurtzman era.
Shenzhou, are you able to see this?
All right. I had at number 5, Strange New Worlds, A Quality of Mercy. Number 4 was Star Trek Picard Season 3, No Win Scenario. Then number 3, the soup round pick, was Star Trek Discovery, If Memory Serves, from Season 2. My number 2 pick was Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, Kobayashi. And my number 1 pick, Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, Episode 9, the best Lower Decks episode, Wedge Douche.
She has lost all control. Okay, so you had all 5 of the new series. There we go. Strange New Worlds, Picard, Discovery, Prodigy, Lower Decks. My 5 recapping I had from Deep Space Nine, Second Skin. My number 4 pick, All Good Things, the finale of TNG. My number 3 pick was from Voyager, Blink of an Eye, my number 1 all-time favorite Voyager episode. My number 2 pick is my number 2 Enterprise episode, Broken Bow. And The Inner Light from TNG is my number 1 pick, my number 5 TNG episode. Classic. So I had one each from I had 2 TNG, and then Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and Enterprise, right? Because I did not do TOS. So all Berman era Trek for me. Okay, couple of cool stats. I love that we had 1 duplicate, and they were the first 2 picks of our 20 picks. So that is awesome. We did end up with a grand total of Spock dying 5 times, because not only did I include If Memory Serves with that moment where Burnham just crushes him, but I got to include Subspace Rhapsody too, because he gets killed by...
Yes, he does.
Just brutal.
Yeah. X marks the spot.
X does mark the spot. Okay, and here we go. This is only the second time in Trek Ranks history, minus the Kelvin timeline. In episode 150, we had every incarnation plus the Kelvin timeline. This episode, we have every single incarnation of Trek. I'm not counting the animated series, just because it's not likely to get picked. So every other incarnation of Trek has been picked. We had 1 each from Enterprise, Discovery, Picard, Short Treks, Lower Decks, and Prodigies. I was so happy when you picked Wedge Douche, Caleb, because that gave us the total. And then 2 each from Strange New Worlds and Voyager, 3 each from TOS and TNG. And leading the way, as it often does, Deep Space Nine had 4 total picks. We had 2 films in there. So, yeah, amazing kind of, we just covered all this ground. I really didn't think that was going to happen with a topic like this. I thought everyone would go a little further back in time. So I love that that did not happen. Okay, time to activate a temporal inversion, because it's now time to hear from you.
Initiate temporal inversion.
Initiating.
And for this week's temporal inversion, we're going back to episode 161. We got so much feedback for this episode. It's top 5 one-off relatives. We got like 3 or 4 voicemails we've been playing over the last 6 months, and some great lists. I haven't really done any lists yet for this one. So here we go. This is from Craig Main, who is at Craig M1701. We got to get him on the show. He filled out our survey calibration probe. We need to get him on. His picks. Number 5, I love this, one-off relative. Number 5, Loxana Troy. His 5 words and a half. She's a true one-off. Hashtag Annie Mame. So I love that little tweak. She's obviously not a one-off relative, but she's a true one-off. Number 4, this is so good. Pyotr Chekhov, which is his 5 words. Chekhov doesn't have a brother. Hashtag what the frere. I had to look up frere. It's brother in French.
Brother in French.
I had no idea. I didn't know any French. So this is from Day of the Dove, and I love that he picked Peter Chekhov, who doesn't actually exist. So good. Number 3, Salamander Babies, classic. Why did you leave us? Hashtag never forget. Why did you leave us? Oh my God. And that's from Threshold. This list kicks ass. Number 2, Sorella, a prideful, arrogant, mercurial woman. Hashtag Mrs. Martok, from, of course, You Are Cordially Invited, from Deep Space Nine. And number 1, I love this pick, is I'll give you the 5 words and hashtags. Maybe I should write her. Hashtag Janeway Botherers from author. It's the Kims. Harry Kim's parents who, yeah, you don't remember it either. I had to look this up. I'm like, the Kims? Oh, yeah, there's a scene where Harry's talking, I guess one of the
to
subplots.
His mother, I think.
It was the subplot of author. He's got a chance to connect through subspace with his parents. And by the way, again, author, one of my least favorite episodes of Star Trek ever. I loathe it. So I forgot about this subplot. So he talks to the Kims, to his mom, and she's like, oh, I'm going to write her. And he's like, don't bother, Captain Janeway. Anyway, barely can remember it. The Kims is his number one pick. Incredible. He had a secondary system, Ishara Yar, Gabriel Huang, who is
that's
Rafi. Yeah, Rafi's son.
Yeah.
Barash, which I love. He just has Barash because that's Jean-Luc. That's
Little
Riker's son,
Jean-Luc.
Jean-Luc. McCoy's father, Kyle Riker, and Sergei Roshenko. Incredible list from Craig Main. I love it. All right. So once again, those picks, more than enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal inversion. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all the great responses to the Trek Ranks podcast. Please keep your list coming to me at Trek Ranks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 episodes you want to watch again for the first time, or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. Or you can just send me a DM. Just record it yourself and send me a DM. We'll get it downloaded that way. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of Trek Ranks. And on the next episode of Trek Ranks, we are doing a very special one. So the next episode is number 176 of the Trek Ranks podcast, which is the same number of overall episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, the most of any Star Trek series. So in honor of that milestone, we're going back to a series that we started like back in episode 98. We did the top 5 episodes that feel like TOS. So now we're doing the top 5 episodes that feel like TNG. Yeah, and that's going to be fun. There's a lot of episodes that feel like a TNG episode, especially in that early Deep Space Nine when they were literally old TNG scripts. So Debbie, Ross, and Caleb, I'm going to put you guys on the spot here. If you had to choose one episode of Star Trek that you think feels most like a TNG episode, what would it be? I'm going to start with Caleb.
Gosh, me first?
Yeah, put you on the spot. I'm gonna flip it.
I would probably, it's going to be something from Lower Decks. I would say Veritas.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Okay. Veritas is amazing. And every Lower Decks episode feels like TNG. So I love that. Ross.
As soon as you said this, and before you said about Deep Space Nine, my head went to Q-less. Of course. I mean, it's sort of a sequel to TNG. Could really be a TNG episode. It just happens on Deep Space Nine.
That's a good one. Okay, Deb, what do you got?
I'm going with Voyager. God, I can't remember the name of the episode with that holodeck where she's in with the like the
Jane
Victorian story.
Yeah,
I can't think of the name of the episode.
There's a few of them.
Yes, I know, but it just feels so like a.
Oh, persistence of vision. There we go. Okay. Editor's note, we just paused and scrambled for like 3 minutes to figure out, it's persistence of vision.
Yeah.
Right, where the caretaker comes back and the Bothans are causing havoc, because that one begins. That's Jerry Taylor's script and has the most Victorian or whatever, Edwardian.
The turn of the screw, isn't it? That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, right. Turn of the screw. Yep, exactly.
That whole holodeck part just is very
I love it, but just from a holodeck standpoint, that feels like Data practicing Scrooge, right?
Yeah.
Yes, or Q putting him in the Robin Hood scenario or something.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, this episode's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Top 5 episodes that feel like TNG. Amazing.
Channel closed. Reset. Subspace communication. Scrambler code Riker 1.
Here we go. Scrambler code Riker 1 acknowledged. Let's close this episode out with a huge thanks to our 3 Flash Trek Ranks guests, Debbie Moltisanti, Ross Webster, and Caleb Dorsch. It was awesome having you guys on, and appreciate you coming on so fast to get this one scheduled. Any final Trek Scrambler codes you guys want to relay before we depart, Debbie?
I'm doing a little time travel back to 1967 because I understand that an episode called The Trouble with Tribbles is premiering tonight. So I'd like to see that for the first time.
Oh my God, I love it. I think it premiered
tonight,
today.
The 29th. Yep.
Yeah, 1960. Yeah, this is the day. Oh, wow.
Nice.
The day we're recording. Brilliant. I just read that on Twitter somewhere. Ross, thank you, man, for coming back.
No, thank you for having me. It was nice. I sort of creep on Twitter occasionally, and I saw this. Within minutes of you posting it, I was on Twitter, and it was very serendipitous. So I'm glad to come on.
Good
glad to find the
timing.
message.
Good timing. I couldn't post it on Blue Sky because there's no DMs over there.
No DMs.
So come on, Blue Sky, get your DMs going, get your gifts going, and then we can all leave Twitter.
And hashtags and everything else that it needs. Yeah.
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 Caleb, thanks for coming on, man. And we'll definitely get you on again before the next 2 years.
Absolutely. And for those who need to experience some Trek for the first time, go watch Star Trek Prodigy.
Yes. In fact, if you're ever recommending to somebody where to start on Star Trek Prodigy is pretty much the place. It is absolutely fantastic. We love it. Okay, thanks everyone again for engaging with us here on episode 175 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
I told you I am in command here, and I will give the orders, Captain. We are going to turn and attack.
Not with my ship, you don't. Mr. Spock, relieve Commodore Decker immediately. That's a direct order.
You can't relieve me, and you know it. According to regulations...
Blast regulations. Mr. Spock, I order you to assume command on my personal authority as captain of the Enterprise.
Commodore Decker, you are relieved of command.
I don't recognize your authority to relieve me.
You may file a formal protest with Starfleet Command, assuming we survive to reach Astora Base. But you are relieved. Commodore, I do not wish to place you under arrest.
You wouldn't dare. You're bluffing.
Vulcans never bluff.
No, I don't suppose that they do.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
Will be traveling under false transit documents prepared by Starfleet Intelligence. Mr. O'Brien has reconfigured the shield harmonics of the Defiant so that on long-range sensors will appear to be a Cobarian freighter. We leave in 3 hours.
I'll go along on your fool's errand, but I want one thing to be perfectly clear. I have no intention of sacrificing my life to save yours. If it looks like we're in danger of being captured, if there's any sign of trouble at all, you're on your own.
Mr. Garrick, I believe that's the first completely honest thing you've ever said to me.
How perceptive of you, Commander.